A shadow in the mist history is often written in gold, telling tales of glorious kings and righteous victories. But sometimes history is written in ash. In the heart of the 14th century, a figure emerged from the fog of the Hundred Years' War who would define the brutality of the Middle Ages. He was a paradox, a paragon of chivalry to his friends and a demon of destruction to his enemies. They called him Edward of Woodstock, but the world would remember him by a darker name, the Black Prince. History's echo, and a fast, engaging animation that shows glimpses of the mysteries and technologies of the past. From the depths of forgotten empires emerge innovations that defy our modern understanding. Welcome to History's Echo, where we uncover the forgotten brilliance of civilizations long past. A shadow in the mist history is often written in gold, telling tales of glorious kings and righteous victories. But sometimes history is written in ash. In the heart of the 14th century, a figure emerged from the fog of the Hundred Years' War who would define the brutality of the Middle Ages. He was a paradox, a paragon of chivalry to his friends and a demon of destruction to his enemies. They called him Edward of Woodstock, but the world would remember him by a darker name, the Black Prince. Imagine the year 1346. The fields of France are soaked in rain. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and impending death. Standing at the forefront of the English lines is a 16-year-old boy. He is not hiding behind his father, the king. He is commanding the vanguard. This wasn't just a prince, this was a weapon of war forged in the fires of ambition. Why does his name still echo 600 years later? Was it his tactical genius that humbled the greatest armies of Europe? Or was it the ruthless cruelty that left entire cities in ruins? To understand the legend, we must look past the shining armor and stare into the darkness that fueled the English war machine. This is the story of the king England never had, and the warrior France could never forget. The boy who broke the rules, the Battle of Crécy, born in 1330, Edward was the eldest son of King Edward III, but he was born into a world in transition. The age of the mounted knight charging blindly for honor was dying. A new age of professionalism, discipline, and cold calculation was dawning, and young Edward was its first true master. His trial by fire came at the Battle of Crécy. The English army was cornered, outnumbered, and seemingly doomed. Facing them was the flower of French chivalry, thousands of armored knights convinced that war was a gentleman's game. They looked at the English lines filled with muddy peasants holding longbows, and they laughed. They shouldn't have. As the French cavalry charged, thunder didn't come from the sky. It came from the English longbows. The sky turned black with arrows. It was a slaughter. But in the chaos, the young Prince Edward found himself cut off. The fighting was fierce. He was knocked to his knees, his standard-bearer fighting desperately to keep the prince's banner flying. Terrified messengers ran to his father, King Edward III, watching from a windmill on a nearby hill. "Sire, the prince is surrounded. Send reinforcements," they cried. The king looked down at the battlefield, his face unreadable. He asked one question, "Is he dead? Is he unhorsed?" "No, sire," they replied. "Then let the boy win his spurs," the king commanded. "For I wish that this day shall be his." It was a cold, brutal lesson in leadership. Sink or swim, die or become a legend. Edward rose from the mud, fought back the French waves, and by sunset, he wasn't just a boy anymore. He was the most feared soldier in Europe. Crécy didn't just win a war, it shattered the myth of French invincibility. And standing atop that pile of broken chivalry was the Black Prince. The impossible victory, Poitiers, and the capture of a king. 10 years later, the boy had become a man, and the warrior had become a general. The year was 1356, the setting, Poitiers. Once again, the English were deep in enemy territory. Once again, they were vastly outnumbered. King John II of France, eager to avenge the humiliation of Crécy, brought a massive army to crush the prince once and for all. But Edward possessed a mind that saw the battlefield like a chessboard. He knew that in the Middle Ages, numbers meant nothing if you couldn't control the terrain. He positioned his men among hedges and vineyards, forcing the French to bottleneck, stripping them of their numerical advantage. What happened next was unthinkable. The French attacked in waves, driven by pride. Edward met them with patience and precision. The English archers targeted the horses, turning the French charge into a chaotic pile of screaming beasts and trapped knights. Then, at the critical moment, Edward unleashed his reserve cavalry. The result wasn't just a defeat for France, it was a catastrophe. In the heat of the melee, the Black Prince did the impossible. He captured King John II of France. Imagine the shockwave that sent through the medieval world. Capturing a king was like capturing a god. Edward treated his royal prisoner with exaggerated politeness, serving him dinner that very night. It was the height of chivalry, a performance of manners. But make no mistake, this was a power move. With the French king in chains, England held the throat of Europe. The Black Prince was at the summit of his glory. He was the golden hero of England. But gold, as we know, is cold and hard. The darkness behind the legend, the chevauché. If the story stopped here, Edward would be remembered as a classic hero. But history is rarely so simple. To the French peasants, Edward was not a hero. He was the devil himself. To understand the black in his name, we must look at his strategy known as the chevauché. In modern terms, this was total war economic terrorism. Edward knew he couldn't conquer every inch of France, so he decided to burn it. He led lightning-fast raids through the countryside, not to fight armies, but to destroy livelihoods. His men burned crops, slaughtered livestock, looted monasteries, and torched villages. The goal was cruel but strategically brilliant: destroy the French economy so the king could not pay his army, and terrorize the civilians so they would lose faith in their protector. Smoke rose from the horizon wherever Edward rode. He wasn't protecting the innocent, he was using them as pawns. The most infamous stain on his soul came at Limoges in 1370. After the town surrendered to the French and then was retaken by Edward, the prince was in a foul mood. Sick, angry, and betrayed, he allegedly ordered the massacre of thousands of inhabitants, men, women, and children. While modern historians debate the numbers, the reputation stuck. The brilliance of Poitiers was shadowed by the smoke of burning villages. He proved that medieval glory was inseparable from suffering. He was a man who could dine politely with a captured king one night and order a city to be put to the sword the next. Thobikili and the echo, but no armor can protect a man from his own mortality. Following a campaign in Spain, another tactical victory that achieved little political gain, Edward's body began to fail him. He contracted a chronic illness, likely dysentery or amoebic infection. The man who had dodged thousands of arrows and swords was being eaten alive from the inside. He returned to England, a shadow of the titan he once was. His body swelled, his strength evaporated. He spent his final years bedridden, watching the kingdom he was born to rule struggle as his father, King Edward III, grew senile. The tragedy of the Black Prince is not that he died, but that he died too soon. He passed away in 1376 at the age of 45, just 1 year before his father. He never wore the crown. He never sat on the throne of England as King Edward IV. Instead, the burden of the crown passed to his 10-year-old son, Richard II, a boy who would eventually be deposed and murdered, sparking the Wars of the Roses. If the Black Prince had lived, English history, and perhaps the history of the world, would have been radically different. A strong warrior king might have prevented the civil wars that tore England apart for the next century. Conclusion: Edward the Black Prince lies buried in Canterbury Cathedral. His effigy is cast in bronze, fully armored, hands deeply in prayer, staring eternally toward heaven. Above his tomb hangs his actual surcoat, helmet, and gauntlets, now fragile and dusty but once soaked in the sweat and blood of Crécy and Poitiers. He remains the ultimate symbol of the Middle Ages, magnificent and cruel, brilliant and brutal. He reminds us that the legends we admire are often forged in fires that burn the innocent. He was the greatest king England never had, and the darkest shadow cast by the medieval sun. Legends never truly die. They just wait for the world to remember them. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark heart of the Middle Ages, make sure to like and subscribe. Join us next time as we uncover the secrets buried by time. This is History's Echo signing off.